Pluribus is arguably the most binge-watchable television series I have ever seen, and I've seen a ton of them. So started this Tuesday night, watched a couple episodes, went to sleep, woke up Christmas Eve morning, did another 5 episodes, went to a Christmas Eve pizza party, came back, ducked out of that maybe an hour in, and then finished this off. And it's an incredible series. I can't recommend it enough. And I actually regret, not just doing a reaction to it because it was so damn good. So I'm sort of making this video as a sort of compromise to where, I can actually speak on it a little bit and, highly recommend it to the audience because I think anybody that watches this will really end up enjoying it. And yeah, I wanted to just make a quick video where, I give out that recommendation. I think the first half will be basically geared towards that. Second half, I want to get into, potential spoilers and also discussion about where I think things are headed for season 2. So right away, it's an incredible series. Vince Gilligan does an amazing job here. He arguably created the best television series of all time in Breaking Bad. And yeah, the guy just really knows how to construct a really well-written episode of television. And you see it here, 9 examples of it in this first season. Every episode is fire. Really enjoyed it. It's not very long. Most episodes are around 45 minutes-ish. And maybe a couple of them are like an hour long. So this is like a really quick binge watch. And it was released, perfectly timed because a lot of people have that break over the holiday. And you have a lot of opportunities here to knock out this show in a couple days, maybe even less if you're really dedicated to it. Rhea Seehorn does a great job in this. She's the lead, Carol. Also really like the character of Minosos. Don't know the actor's name, never seen him before, but he's excellent. I really like a well-written, stubborn character, and he's got that in spades. Obviously, the cinematography is on point. Vince Gilligan always has that in his bag anytime he wants to use it, and he uses it a lot in this series. Also, just the story is really great. You're trying to figure this whole thing out with the characters as you're going through it. It's so weird and unnerving, but also very interesting. You can't stop watching it. Even parts that I thought were, somewhat slow, I never felt bored with. Like, it all felt enjoyable. I don't really have any complaints. Maybe a minor gripe, I really don't like when they make Rhea Seehorn, do a crying scene, but that's, a minor thing. The rest of the series is excellent. And yeah, I just wanted to say, if you are thinking about watching this series, you should absolutely do it. It is amazing. And honestly, I just regret not doing actual reactions to each episode because it was so damn good. But, once I started, it was too late to turn back. And so, here we are doing a little cope on my part, but, still really cool to watch, and I'm glad at least I have this to talk about it a little bit. And this first half is just going to be, basic recommendation. If you're at all thinking about watching this series, you should absolutely do it. I'm very confident you will enjoy it. This second half of this video is now going to be dedicated to me talking about spoilers and also where I think things are going for Season 2, which, hopefully we don't have to wait too long. Maybe late 2026, probably more like 2027, but it's something that's well worth the wait, and, I'll be around to actually watch that for sure. Since I already did Season 1, might not do, reactions to Season 2, but you never know. Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, everything from this point on is going to be spoilers from Season 1, and also where just I think things are headed for Season 2. So, 3, 2, 1, here we go. Okay, I just wanted to talk about the entity, the hive mind, Pluribus. Pluribus is Latin for many. They're also called the others, the weirdos. I think ultimately what this thing really is a rather brilliant weapon of mass destruction, specifically targeted against humans. So it's super ironic that this hive mind that, ultimately invades Earth and, takes over the planet is inherently pacifistic, like to an extreme degree. Like they literally can't pluck an apple off a tree because, that would be considered harm by them. And they take it to a point where they're literally all going to starve to death because they can't hunt, they can't farm, they can't cause harm in any way, they can't even lie. And I found it pretty interesting of note that they don't know their true origin, and that's because I think if they actually knew what their actual purpose was, they wouldn't be able to do it. And that's why I think they're a weapon. And where I think things are headed is very clear. In 10 years' time, the entire population of the Earth will starve to death because they can't farm, they can't hunt, they can't do anything like that could cause harm. And I think what their actual intended purpose is to just drive the population to zero over time. And it's pretty insidious and ingenious by the aliens that created, this RNA strand that gets broadcasted outward. Curious species, download it and then recreate it in a lab. Something eventually goes wrong to where it gets out. And, you're basically off to the races at that point. I forget the exact time frame, but once the first person was bitten, It took less than 48 hours to basically infect the entire world's population for the most part, except for the 13 individuals who, for whatever reason, still don't know exactly why, but they were immune to the initial, outbreak. And it's a way of conquering a planet without causing, undue devastation and destruction. So all the resources are intact. All the wildlife is still intact except for, that one dominant species that you're attempting to eliminate through this. The hive mind is fascinating because despite the fact that I really think it is, a world-conquering weapon of mass destruction, it's so nice and inviting that there's a temptation there that few people can resist. Even Carol, who starts off, very skeptical, is very much like Minosos at the beginning. Eventually she sort of starts coming around to this idea that, hey, this thing could become a friend, a companion. I could even, potentially develop a real romantic relationship with it, which, I think she's sort of deluding herself a little bit there, but, there's that temptation and it's not easy to say no to. Now, ultimately, she does come around towards it because even though, they're having this great time, the thing is still actively working towards, some means of controlling her and, bringing her into the fold, completely destroying her individuality in the process, but, it views it as a greater good, even though it very much can be construed as an act of aggression, in sort of a roundabout way. But I ultimately think that this thing, even though it thinks it's doing the right thing, ultimately really is just a doomsday weapon. It's just not aware of what its actual purpose is. And I'm kind of curious if in season 2 it learns, ultimately what its actual purpose is, how it's destructive in nature, how it would react to that. So 2 quick things. There's the introduction of the atom bomb at the end of the series, the nuclear weapon. Carol, conflicted, ultimately decides that, what, Minosis is right here. I got to start working with him to actually solve this problem because the clock is ticking. I think she said she has a month left before they're able to, convert her, so to speak. So she's running out of time and she knows it, and the thing is never going to stop. Even though it thinks it's doing good, it really ultimately is not doing good. So yeah, Carol and Minosos working together is our best shot to save humanity here, and ultimately I think they're going to be able to pull it off. So we have the atom bomb, and also Senor Minosos, who discovered the signal transmission and how you can potentially disrupt it. You put those 2 things together, and where I think they're headed with this thing is, when you detonate a nuclear weapon, you obviously have, the destructive blast of the nuke itself, but you also get an electromagnetic pulse. And that, I think, is the key to disrupting the signal, and that's ultimately what is going to, reverse the course here and save humanity, save the planet. Now, it could be wrong, but, I thought it would be a good idea to get on the record here, just in case I end up, actually reacting to this on the channel season 2, and, just kind of get on the record now. Also, just wanted to talk about this because it's so cool and interesting. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up my quick review of Pluribus. Can't recommend it enough. Think it is the most binge-watchable show that I've ever encountered, and, I've encountered a lot. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I got. As always, thanks for watching, and peace.